What's up everyone? You're watching Car X Motorsport. My name is Artyom Zanin, and in this video we're continuing the work on the LT5 and installing into S13. We bought the Nissan Silvia S13 back in 2018 as our first drift car. The first event we took it to was RDS West in Ryazan, 2018. At that time we were also building the 200 S6, but we didn't want to wait. We wanted to drift right now, so we got the S13. It was mostly stock at the time, stock GZ engine, a basic transmission, and early version ECU. Things like water lines, uncorrugated hoses, and wiring. After that, we started upgrading it with bigger cams, a larger turbo, and motorsport parts. Now we can see that a lot of these decisions were mistakes, but they were experiments after all. The car stayed like this until 2022. It caught fire, hit a wall, and went through a lot. When the 200 S6 was done, we had to decide about the S13. The most logical option was just to get it back into the work condition. The car had been stripped down so fast that tracking down all the parts would be impossible. Now, the question of what to do with the fully assembled car still lingers. Of course, there was the option to rebuild it and put it for sale. For a beginner drifter or local events, it would have been a great car. But that idea didn't pan out because the car is so unique and we wanted to keep it working. Plus, we had a ton of spare body panels and parts. Honestly, we really liked that car. Even though at one point we were ready to sell it and move on. We thought about making it at top level for these kind of competitions, but that would mean a complete rebuild, body, wiring, lines. We weren't sure if the chassis could handle it, and it would have been just both expensive and time consuming. It made more sense to put those resources into newer chassis. That actually would have been much cheaper in the long run. Another option was to build it as a practice car for local drift event. We could throw in a semi-stock GC engine, use a sequential gearbox, and keep a lower cost. If performed well, we could always upgrade it. And if it didn't, we could just sell it as a fully functional car instead of a half-finished project. But that option didn't really excite us. We had also a cool idea to turn it into a simulator. We thought about replacing front and side windows with the screen, installing control buttons like regular buttons that you have inside a car, adding vibration to the seat to stimulate G-forces and putting into a motion platform so you can actually feel everything. But would be sitting inside a real car with a dashboard, roof, and roll cage. We even thought about adding proper speakers instead of headphones, using sounds from the transmissions, differential, and engine. We started working on it, but hit a problem with the game physics and the fact that we'd be sitting off-center. It was actually a real challenge. We realized it was a complicated project, but still we decided to try it. We realized it was a complicated project that might never get finished, so we decided to let it go. Now we will get into the nitty-gritty of how we managed to stuff this big engine into this small chassis. Hey guys, I'm Yevgeny and I'm the mechanic of Car X Motorsport. I was the one who handled putting this engine into this chassis. Before we installing it, we modeled everything. Of course, we scanned the engine with the headers, scanned the firewalls and the engine bay to have an idea. On the computer, everything seemed to fit, but in reality, we hit a problem. The subframe was in the way underneath and we didn't want to put a bulge in the hood. So we built our own custom subframe and lowered it by 30mm. We actually got this idea from off-road guides and it worked perfectly. We installed spacers and welded them to the subframe to avoid any flexing and to keep the bolts from shearing off basically. With that power we knew that firm rails tend to flex. And about engine mounts. We also had a lot of discussions about the engine mounts. Should we use the stock mounts like we do with the JZ engines? Those work fine and we have never had any problems with them. Or should we use a front plate mounted to the timing cover like they do on Corvettes? The thing about Corvette is that they had a big subframe and different headers, so it doesn't have any clearance issues, but in the S13 the frame rails are much narrower and weaker. At the moment we decided to evaluate both options, but settled on a compromise, mounting it to the front plate. Then we made custom brackets and used tile and blocks to install it, like it was. Plus, we had to deal with the steering shaft running along the left side, which definitely would have interfered with the stock mounts. We ended up making new headers for the same reason. Because, of course, they wouldn't fit with the stock mount either. We might change it again later, but for now, we're leaving it as it has.
Let's talk about exhaust. We are making new headers and a new exhaust system here. Why new headers? Let me explain. Look at here. This was the old cast iron manifold. People call these rakes because of how they look. Someone weld something onto it. Now, this one, it's a new one, you know? We need to finish the collector and hook it up the 66mm exhaust piping. The main issue with the old header was the steering shaft wouldn't fit. This one, let me show you. Can you see? It was hitting the cast iron header, so we had to work around it. That's one reason. The second reason is that the old headers didn't allow enough airflow for the power we are trying to make with this engine. So, of course, we decided to make new headers with much better airflow. It's easier in this setup too. There is no steering shaft in the way and the starter is already in place. We've got the new model sitting here on the table. We have started working on the collector, but we hit a small issue here. Okay, it's not a big one, but okay, we'll fix it. The runner shifted just a bit to the fitment, and now there is only a 8mm gap between the starter and the runner. That's not enough to prevent it from heating up. So you probably move it, maybe for another 8mm, which will give us a 15mm gap. The exhaust pipes will come out over here, and we will run them through a next pipe in this shape. It will connect at this point here, and the system will be mounted on vibration support so it can be easily removed. For now, we are not adding mufflers. Everyone knows we have got decibel limits in the new regulations, and right now this is just a test setup to make sure everything works properly in this car. As for the design, the headers are almost equal length. We are not gonna make them exactly equal because we are on a tight deadline and we want to see how the engine performs. So the runners are 45mm in diameter and the walls 2mm. Later we'll switch to 321 stainless steel. This one is 304. 321 steel, 2.6mm the walls, but that's for raised setup. This for now is just our test version. The flange is 12mm thick, which is standard for the headers I built. Next, exhaust pipe will be 76mm and 2, not 1.5 but 2, which can handle just more stress. Our test just show us that 2mm exhaust system can take a beating. Literally, people drag their cars along the ground, and even though the pipes get dented and rubbed, they never get cracked or broken. They are always fine. And also, having 2mm when the engine's running hard and vibrations are sent through the system, this setup can handle the stress like super easy, even with resonance. So, according to the rules, the down pipe or mid pipe use 2mm and the rest of system 1.5. We are almost done with the headers, just need to weld them up and we'll work on the rest of the exhaust. And the system is complete. We installed the oil tank in the passenger footwell since we moved it. This was eased by moving the steering wheel and pedals to the left side, and engine's oil tank outlets are on the right side right now. The Corvette's the same, but it has more space under the hood,
so the oil tank is located there. We route everything here through hard lines and hoses. In principle, we had the same setup on the SX, but now there are gauges. Our gauges are also being placed inside the cabin, but towards the rear for better weight distribution. They weigh quite a bit, and the entire drivetrain is up front, so we are moving everything back as much as possible for better balance. We could have moved the oil tank back as well, but we were hesitant to extend hydraulic lines. Therefore, we'll keep the oil tank with its original setup. We plan to fire up the engine soon and take it to the dyno to check the parameters it produces in the stock configuration and stock ICU. We also plan to take it to the track to see how Tolia performs in this configuration so he can have something to compare it against. So for the moment, while we wait for the harness for the new ECU to arrive, we'll finish the welding work, completing the firewall, covering the oil tank and power steering and routing the fuel system to its final location. Thank you all for watching this video till the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and in Telegram. We'll be thrilled to have you with us. Stay tuned for more videos from testing and the dyno. Bye bye.